You can spend years saving for a big trip to Europe. You book the flights, choose the hotel, picture the cafes, the museums, the old streets, the perfect days, and then you get there and realize the trip is harder than it looked online. Too many stairs, too many crowds, too much walking, a hotel in the wrong area, a train station that's confusing with luggage, a city that's beautiful but just wears you down. So this isn't a list of cities you should never visit. It's a list of 7 famous European cities retirees should think twice about before booking the easy, carefree version of the trip. Let's start with number 7. Venice is one of the most beautiful cities in the world, but it's also one of the easiest cities in Europe to underestimate. On a map, everything looks close. In real life, Venice is a maze of narrow lanes, bridges, steps, vaporetto stops, queues, and dead ends. And that matters a lot more when you're not traveling like a 25-year-old backpacker. If you've got knee trouble, balance issues, heavy luggage, or you simply don't want to spend the whole day climbing up and down bridges, Venice can get tiring very quickly. The non-obvious problem is that Venice can feel easy for the first hour. You stroll along the water, take a few photos, maybe cross 1 or 2 bridges and think, this is fine. But then your route sends you over bridge after bridge, or you take a wrong turn, or your hotel looks central on the booking site, but every time you leave, you're dealing with steps, crowds, and slow walking lanes. And because there are no normal taxis inside the historic core, a bad hotel location can punish you every single day. Venice has also introduced peak day access fees for day visitors, and the city now publishes visitor estimates so people can avoid the busiest days. That tells you something. Venice itself knows crowding has become a problem, so the smarter move isn't necessarily to skip Venice, it's to avoid treating it like a casual, easy day trip. If you can, stay at least 2 nights. Avoid weekends and peak cruise days, and choose accommodation near a vaporetto stop, not just somewhere that looks pretty or central on a map. For older travelers, Venice is not a city where you want to improvise too much. Number 6. Amsterdam. Amsterdam often looks like an easy city. It's flat, it's compact, it's full of museums, and compared to places like Lisbon or Athens, you don't have those big uphill climbs. But the problem in Amsterdam isn't hills, it's street chaos. The bike lanes are serious. They're not decorative. Locals move fast, bikes come from every direction, and tourists often step into the wrong place without realizing it. For older visitors who are used to slower pedestrian cities, that rhythm can feel surprisingly stressful. Then there's the accommodation issue. A lot of Amsterdam's charm comes from old canal houses, but old canal houses can also mean steep stairs, narrow entrances, small rooms, no elevator, and awkward luggage access. That beautiful little boutique hotel might be charming in the photos, but if your room is up 3 narrow flights of stairs, it may not feel so charming when you arrive tired from a long flight. Even some famous attractions are tricky. The Anne Frank House, for example, is a historic building with steep stairs and limited accessibility. Amsterdam also has well-known pickpocketing issues around Central Station, trams, and airport train routes. The risk usually isn't violence, it's distraction, bags, phones, wallets, luggage, and tourists trying to figure out where they're going. So the smarter move is to stay slightly outside the most hectic center, somewhere calmer like Museumplein or another less chaotic area. And before you book, confirm the hotel has an elevator. Don't assume flat city means easy city. Amsterdam can be wonderful, but retirees should plan it carefully. Number 5. Lisbon. Lisbon has become one of Europe's favorite cities for older travelers, and honestly, it makes sense. It's sunny, beautiful, relaxed, historic, and often cheaper than places like Paris, London, or Rome. But Lisbon has one problem older travelers really need to take seriously. It's called the City of 7 Hills for a reason. That's not just a romantic nickname, it shapes the whole trip. A restaurant that looks 5 minutes away on Google Maps might involve a steep climb. A short walk back to the hotel can feel completely different after dinner, in warm weather, or after a long day of sightseeing. And Lisbon is the kind of city where you can accidentally plan a trip that looks reasonable on paper but feels exhausting in real life. The classic yellow trams also look charming, but they're not always the comfortable little sightseeing ride people imagine. They can be crowded, slow, and known for pickpocketing around tourist-heavy stops. Tram 28 in particular is often more of a tourist attraction than a practical transport solution. Another issue is cruise pressure. Lisbon is seeing more cruise traffic, and that can overwhelm certain viewpoints, streets, trams, and transport routes at specific times of day. So again, Lisbon isn't a city to avoid, but it's a city where the wrong base can make the trip much harder. For older travelers, flatter areas like Baixa, Belém, or Parque das Nações can make more sense than staying somewhere beautiful but steep. Another smart option is staying in Cascais and day tripping into Lisbon when you want to. And don't be afraid to use taxis or ride-hailing for uphill journeys. Lisbon is best when you don't try to prove how much walking you can do. Number 4. Barcelona. Barcelona is still one of Europe's great cities, but for older travelers, it can feel more intense than expected. The problem isn't just that Barcelona is popular, it's that the most famous parts of the city are under constant pressure. Cruise traffic, Park Güell, Las Ramblas, the Gothic Quarter, the metro, the beaches, the big landmarks. A lot of the city's most famous areas are exactly where the crowds, pickpockets, tour groups, and tired tourists all collide. Barcelona has had serious over-tourism problems, and the city and port have even agreed to reduce the number of cruise terminals. That tells you the pressure is real. It's not just something grumpy travelers complain about online. One of the most useful examples is a small local bus route near Park Güell that became so overwhelmed by tourists that locals struggled to use it. The route was reportedly removed from map apps because visitors were flooding a service that was meant for residents. That's the kind of detail people rarely think about before booking. They imagine the architecture, the food, and the sunshine. They don't imagine waiting for transport in a packed area while trying to protect their phone and wallet. Barcelona also has a strong reputation for pickpocketing, especially on busy metro routes, in crowds, and in tourist zones. Again, this is usually not violent crime. It's distraction, teamwork, and opportunity. For retirees, the smarter move is to stay in Eixample or Poblenou rather than right in the most crowded tourist core. Book Sagrada Familia and Park Güell for early or late slots. Avoid dragging bags through the metro if you can. And don't treat Las Ramblas as a relaxed evening stroll. Barcelona rewards planning. It punishes casual wandering more than people expect. The final 3 destinations might surprise you the most. The aim of this channel isn't to bash your holiday plans, it's to save seniors time and money when planning their next trip. So hit subscribe if that sounds like something that would interest you. Number 3. Dubrovnik. Dubrovnik is one of the most spectacular old cities in Europe. But for retirees, it's also one of the easiest places to get wrong. The walled old town is small, famous, and often crowded. Cruise passengers, day trippers, tour groups, stairs, narrow streets, and heat can all collide in a very compact space. And when a place is that compact, it doesn't take much for it to feel overwhelming. The city has been trying to manage over-tourism for years. Cruise visitor numbers have been limited, and newer traffic rules around the historic old city mean you can't always assume a taxi or rental car will get you exactly where you want to go. That matters a lot for older travelers, because in Dubrovnik, the final part of the journey can be the hardest part. You might have luggage, you might be staying inside or near the walls, you might face steps, crowds, limited vehicle access, and uneven stone streets. And if you've just come off a long journey, that can turn a dream arrival into a frustrating one. Accessibility does exist in parts of the city, but it's selective. It's not the kind of place where you should assume every route will be easy. The smarter move is to stay in Lapad or just outside the walls. Visit the old town very early or later in the day after the day trip crowds thin out. And if you're arriving by cruise, be realistic about what the old town will feel like when several thousand other people have the same idea. Dubrovnik is not a bad choice, but it's often better as a carefully timed visit than as a casual central old town stay. Number 2, Athens. Athens is essential for history lovers, but retirees should be honest about the physical effort. The Acropolis is not just another attraction, it's a climb. You're dealing with uneven stone, exposed areas, slippery surfaces, crowds, and very little forgiveness if you arrive tired or overheated. Even official accessible route information for ancient Athens warns about slopes, rough surfaces, gaps in paving, and sections where caution or assistance may be needed. The non-obvious mistake is stacking too many archaeological sites into one day. On paper, it looks efficient. You think, we'll do the Acropolis, then a few ancient sites, then a museum, then dinner. But in real life, that can mean hours on hard stone in open sun with limited shade and lots of standing around. And then there's the heat. In recent summers, the Acropolis has had to close during extreme heat. Greece has also dealt with wildfire and smoke disruption near Athens, which can matter more for older travelers with heart, lung, or stamina concerns. Now, that doesn't mean Athens is only a summer problem. Even outside the hottest months, the main issue remains the same. Athens can be physically demanding if you plan it like a checklist. The smarter move is to slow the city down. Visit in shoulder season if possible. Do the Acropolis at opening time or late in the day. Use the Acropolis Museum as a cooler, seated, indoor part of the day. And don't build an itinerary that makes you feel like you're marching through history instead of enjoying it. For retirees, Athens is best when you give it breathing room. Number 1, Paris. Paris might seem like the safest bet on this list. It's familiar, it's famous, it's full of world-class museums, cafes, parks, restaurants, shops, and hotels. But the classic tourist strategy for Paris can be surprisingly rough for older travelers. That strategy is simple. Fly in. Take the RER from the airport, use the metro constantly, walk all day, climb station stairs, visit major attractions, repeat. For a fit younger traveler, that can work. For retirees, it can become tiring, frustrating, and sometimes risky. Paris transport is not as easy as people imagine. Some metro and RER stations are deep, busy, stair-heavy, and not always simple when you've got luggage or mobility concerns. The city has improved accessibility in many ways, but even Paris's own accessibility material acknowledges that transport can still be a real difficulty. There's also a theft issue on the metro, RER lines, airport trains, and major stations. Older visitors trying to manage luggage, tickets, phones, directions, and unfamiliar platforms are exactly the kind of distracted travelers pickpockets look for. And during heat waves, Paris can become more difficult than people expect. In recent extreme heat, even major landmarks have had partial closures for safety. The smarter move is not to avoid Paris, it's to change the way you do Paris. Use taxis or buses more often. Stay in an area where you can enjoy cafes, shops, and museums without crossing the entire city every day. Book timed museum entries, build in rest windows, and think carefully before relying on the airport train with luggage, especially after a long overnight flight. Paris is still magnificent, but it's not always the effortless romantic city people have in their heads. So what's the real lesson here? None of these cities are bad. Venice, Amsterdam, Lisbon, Barcelona, Dubrovnik, Athens, and Paris are famous for a reason. But for retirees, the question isn't just, is it beautiful? The better question is, how much friction does this city add to the trip? Are there hills, stairs, crowds, heat, pickpockets, cruise congestion, hard to access hotels, long walks on uneven stone, public transport that sounds easy but becomes stressful with luggage? The best retiree travel isn't about avoiding famous places, it's about visiting them in a smarter way. Choose the right season, stay in the right area, avoid the worst crowd windows, use taxis when they save energy. Book central but practical hotels, and don't let a dream destination turn into a test of endurance, because the goal isn't just to see Europe, it's to enjoy it. If you visited any of these cities, let us know in the comments. Which one was harder than expected, and which European city would you recommend instead? And if you want more practical travel advice for older travelers, including cruises, tourist traps, and hidden value destinations, subscribe to Seasoned Traveler Guide. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe if you'd like more tips and safe travels.